On this episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, we have Travis Island, who's the head of content and commerce over at Magento, which was recently bought up by Adobe. But we dive into a ton of experience-driven commerce, partnerships, the management of operations, the humanizing of commerce, more or less, and more or less how you can kind of get your ads and overall business to resonate more and more with how the times are changing with new ad tech. Definitely tune in if you're curious on the omni-channel approach, partnerships, or even kind of order management capabilities. Make sure to tune in because this one's juicy.
I think that the right investments is where you want to focus. It's tough to do all things. I mean, as a brand, you're looking at operations and warehousing, fulfillment, B2B partnerships. There's so much there that you're doing, and I think that using some of that profitability to start, little SWAT teams or little pods of people that can look at developing business, whether it's like a B2B scenario or if you're looking to get products into retail stores to extend your brand presence. I think those are enormous things to do, and it's all about maximizing each channel, but you got to add channels one at a time. I think in every case, you got to start with one and keep those bricks building.
Listening to the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, where we break down the financial principles that rich advertisers are deploying today to turn advertising into profit and get tons of traffic to their websites without killing their cash. These advertisers, agencies, affiliates, brands are responsible for managing over $1 billion a year in ad spend. You'll hear about what's working for them today, their rich ads, and we'll roast their epic failures and crappy ads on the internet with poor ads. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. This is your host, Zach Johnson. I'm with the one and only Dylan Carpenter. Dylan, you ready to talk about some e-commerce today?
Oh, yeah. Definitely some ad tech stuff.
Some ad tech and some e-commerce. Today's guest is seeing he has like this God's eye view of big e-commerce business. Now, we're not talking like I want to be a Shopify dropship millionaire. We're talking about real businesses doing 8, 9 figures, 10 figures a year. And it's pretty cool. He was previously the manager of business development and strategic alliances over at Magento, and is now head of content and commerce and strategy and business development at Adobe. And he's in our backyard. He's in Austin.
Woo!
You pumped? I'm excited to get into it. I feel like Travis has a really interesting perspective on what's trending and what's working right now in the world of, we'll call it like mid-market, like e-commerce. But yeah, man, Travis Island, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So you're
glad
just
to represent Austin.
yeah. Dylan's up. He's on North Austin. I'm like, maybe 2 miles from you right now, Travis, down south.
That's right. And famous Salt Lick out here. I'm actually in Dripping Springs, which is just on the other side of the county line.
There you go. So tell everybody a little bit about what you were doing at Magento, and now you're doing it at Adobe. For those of you who don't know, Adobe bought Magento. It's like 2 years ago now. And
that's right.
And so that was obviously an awesome thing to experience. We'd love to dive into that. But yeah, just get everybody up to speed if they're not familiar with you, and maybe slightly familiar with Magento.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually started at eBay, and we very quickly divested when eBay and eBay Enterprise split, and Magento ran as a private equity company for a few years. And I think very early on was courting Adobe as a potential acquirer. But, after the past 2 years, it's been nothing but uphill. It's
wait. Let me get this straight. You started at eBay. I didn't know this about Magento. You started at eBay, and then you kind of spun off into Magento, and then now I got acquired by. So you're just kind of like the guy that's like along for the ride. You're just like a good old Labrador retriever of business development, of just like, oh, we're going over here. I got this.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been really interesting to see. I've been very blessed to see how that whole business model of divesting and private equity and acquisition work, and now the challenges and the opportunities that come being at a big company. So it's been really fun. I initially helped build out the cloud product, which Magento had been a single tenant
Mhm.
product for a very long time, and we still are in a way, but that was my first project. So I've had a variety of focuses when we look at how commerce interacts with different business platforms, hosting being one of them, which was my background. But now at Adobe, it's more about the content, it's about the
Mhm.
experience driven commerce. But yeah, I to divest as a private equity company and then be acquired and be along for that whole ride has been amazing. It's been awesome.
So, Travis, you have this amazing view of what's happening in the ecosystem, and it's particularly for much larger size e-commerce businesses. So, talk to us about some of the trends that you see right now that are working for this market.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I sit kind of across both content and commerce, which is the Adobe AEM product suite, as well as Magento. And we do have an open source product that a lot of companies that are somewhat smaller and actually some that are much larger use, even doing $100 million on that product. But typically, it's for companies that are starting doing less than a million online revenues.
Mm.
So thinking about what types of product services serve each of those cohorts of businesses at each stage of that growth, call it like a merchant maturity cycle. I have a really interesting purview to see, what types of payments technologies, what types of ad tech technologies, or back end business operation suites are right for each stage of growth within commerce companies. And so it's and now going into like the Adobe side, there's a whole slew of other types of technologies that are involved in administering experience driven commerce. So I mean, regardless whether you're a millennial on Snapchat or a procurement officer at a global distributor, your expectations as a customer have changed higher than ever. And it's really shown in the way that we've developed technology stacks. And I think in a lot of ways we're behind, but it's all about making customers' lives easier, making experiences for me as a consumer, making it easy for me and worth my time to
Mm.
invest in different products and companies and brands. So it's clear that legacy infrastructure we're using is somewhat inadequate for the task at hand. But across every industry, whether it's B2B or B2C, people aren't just buying products, they're buying experiences. And that's really changing the way that we all see a lot of these shops come up and these brands really scale quickly.
Here we go. All right, Travis, I want to know what's the playbook that you see right now for a seven figure e-commerce business that's scaling to eight figures, and what do you see as the rich ad playbook for this merchant maturity cycle?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think. I mean, going back to how digital technologies are changing the world and everything we know, whether it's how we socialize, exercise, interact with brands, or shop. It's really interesting. And shoppable ads has become uh, something that a lot of these marketplaces or social platforms are looking at as technology becomes more headless in nature, and you're able to drive experiences ubiquitously. I think that's a huge piece of it. So, I've seen a lot of marketplaces pop up. There's actually a lot of marketplaces that are coming to Magento to build out like a third party marketplace. And these channels, I think, offer a really unique opportunity for customers to dominate some less mature channels. I mean, there's obviously the channels like Amazon and eBay who make up the majority of the market, but there's over 300 global marketplaces,
Mhm.
regionally, language, culture specific, and they're growing really fast. Like Netherlands has a marketplace called bol.com or bol.com. Egypt has one called Souk, Souq. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but
Well,
social media and online communities are also in a way a form of marketplaces in themselves, especially if they're owned marketplaces. So creating that community experience and making it shoppable, I think that's something that could really change in how advertisers look at delivering these experiences. If you look at like Facebook's becoming more native in the experiences they drive, you can buy straight off the store, and it feels like you're still on Facebook. So rather than like the years previous, you kind of bounce off to the retailer's site, and it's kind of like this jumbled kind of experience. So I think more of these social media platforms or marketplaces are going to own that whole procurement cycle of product advertisements, and they're the primary traffic source for online retailers. So this drives awareness, and they refer traffic and they monetize it in a variety of ways. But I think like a house might be an interesting example of how a fragmented market is doing $9 billion in volume. It's they, if you're not familiar with them, they're an app. They started as an app and kind of like a social housing design, architecture, construction platform, and they've started now being able to have experiences that you can shop directly from. So if you see a particular house or something, or a kitchen, or maybe it's an outdoor venue, that you can go in and click on different things and actually buy straight from house, and they're own that full end-to-end experience, that whole buying experience, and have over 10 million products. So I think that we'll see continue to see a rise in that, and then the different types of experiences are going to start taking shape. So as an ad professional, if you think about like the Instagram and Facebook boom of advertising, I think it's going to become more intuitive. Video is going to take a huge rise. TikTok's already testing shoppable videos. So if you can build more immersive experiences, I think that's really the future. And you're starting to see it with this whole idea of like the rise of a corporate studio. We have a client called Textile, and most people will probably be familiar with like their brands, Fabletics or Shoe Dazzle, and they're just scaling content production in an enormous way. They're using celebrities to really endorse the products and build a brand around the products, rather than building a product and then developing a brand around the product. So I think it's a huge change in this era, and especially when brands are thinking about breaking through the noise and this era of mistrust and misinformation.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you were mentioning kind of Fabletics, and whenever Kevin Hart kind of partnered with them in all those commercials, I got sold on Kevin Hart being so funny and such a killer intro offer too. So I mean, they leveled up the way they kind of created an experience for their customers to just make it feel very different to where I would have never touched them before any of that. But something else you kind of mentioned too is the whole Facebook Shops side of things. I mean, it's super lucrative on the Facebook side just because more time on site, they're controlling some more of the payment processing. So it's kind of cool to see how these, massive platforms are coming up with this new different, systems more or less to improve the whole streamlining system for the experience and whatnot. But it's also kind of giving them some more, I guess authority because, if you're buying through Facebook, that's more time on Facebook. They're seeing more of what's going on. So I mean, I just think it's so interesting on how fast this kind of industry is moving and how efficient it's getting to kind of really streamline these processes, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that might be challenging for a lot of brands to keep up. And I'm a huge advocate of partnerships, being that that's my career path is partnerships. But thinking about the variety of marketplaces that
Mhm.
exist, and being ubiquitous, being everywhere, and then learning these systems, I'm really a big believer in finding the right agencies to partner with, and whether that's somebody who can take care of the supply chain, or just do ad tech until you can build those resources internally as a big brand or a big company that's doing 8 figures. It's hard to do yourself, and I think that two things emerge. It's one, you can really leverage the knowledge and understanding that agencies or services companies have to accelerate your brand and take care of things where you might not. I mean, just looking at the level of sophistication a brand needs to have, especially growing from $10 million to $25 million and beyond. There's a huge jump there in native experience and talent. So if you think about what your objectives are at that stage of business, and building a foundation and really having order management become a part of the way that you do business, having the right fulfillment centers to keep up with like 2-day shipping and all the other things that Amazon's doing. It's tough. And so I think that one of the goals to look at there, if you're giving up some of that responsibility of your business, is driving up sales to reduce cost of goods sold. And it's all about profitability at that point. At some point, you have to look at systems that become too big and bulky. You start to not realize where your profits are going.
Now, with these different kind of extensions out there, or you were mentioning kind of upsells, are there just a ton of those kind of saturating the market right now when it comes to, I would imagine they've got to have different levels of, back end processes for someone who's doing, $1 million a year versus 100 million a year. Are they pretty different in those kind of scenarios, or how does that kind of phase out from kind of what you see, working for the other, ecom brands?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things is operations on the back end. So I kind of look at the world in three different segments. There's the experience piece, which encompasses ad tech and also like personalization. Then there's the management and operations, which could be like product information management or order management. And then you have payments, and payments can come in a variety of forms. Originally, I just thought of payments processing. There's so much more there to the types of products you sell and the financing options you give and the loyalty that gift cards create, or even like services like Klarna or Affirm that offer split payments. And so I think a lot of these tactics are great, and it's about weaving these things in together and leveraging the wholeness of a service that you might have. Like for instance, like with a Yotpo where you have ratings and reviews and UGC, it's like how can you leverage that in your marketing automation suite? And those are pretty typical for most commerce companies across the board. As far as growing companies, what I see the difference between somebody who's maybe between that 0 to 10 million and 10 million up is the adoption of order management. And then subsequently, at some point, collecting the data on your customers and the rise of personalization. And it started, years ago with the right message, the right channel, the right timing to yield conversions. But technology is giving us capability that we only thought was unreachable a year ago. So I think that personalization transcends product recommendations. It's about connecting with your customers the same way like a family hardware store connected with their customers and their community, 100 years ago. So there's something every company can do by empowering agents and store associates to delight customers. I think that's an important piece to humanizing commerce, and something that small companies can do really well because they're nimble, and large companies have a tough time executing on that. Maybe one of the best stories I could say personally is a company called Sweetwater, which is a pretty large music company in music instruments, guitar pedals, podcasting equipment, everything really. And they actually, I bought, I think something that was pretty nominal. I think I bought like a guitar pedal or something. And at the beginning of the year, I had one of the store associates reach out to me and ask me if he could help in any goals that I had for the new year with my music. And I just play for fun, but I'll be a lifetime customer of Sweetwater because of that. And I think it's really important to humanize commerce, especially like I mentioned in this whole era of mistrust, and that really goes to having that lifetime viability where you spend so much effort on ads and bringing customers in to experience your brand. And then the back end is where I see a lot of the evolution happening right now, that post-purchase, bringing information into the purchase cycle, like shipping and fulfillment, or if maybe a package is delayed, is reaching out to that customer with a 10% discount on its next purchase, just to be sure that you're aware of what the customer experiences is after they purchase something. So there's a lot of technology out there. It's really exciting to see what's being brought to the table, and it's fun for me to kind of see the best of breed and see how clients are using these technologies to either increase profitability, just drive brand loyalty, or even like raise the bar on their search engine optimization.
Man, the whole concept of humanizing commerce just, I was like, ooh, this is getting good now.
This episode is brought to you by Funnel Dash's Ad Card, the only charge card exclusively for your digital ad spend. And if you're an ad agency that manages 7 or even 8 figures a year in media and ad spend for your clients, and you're looking to double your profits over the next 6 to 12 months, then check out Ad Card. See, the typical agency model is this. You charge 10% of your spend, you make 10 to 20% margin at the end of the day. So that's really 1 to 2% of your client's spend that is profit in your business. The easiest way to double that is to really find a way to earn in that 1 to 2% cash back of the card that is on file of your client's ad account. And before Ad Card, what you had to do was invoice all your clients for their ad spend up front, which is really difficult on a cash flow basis and very difficult ask. And then you had to put the card on your own Amex or whatever card of choice to get that level of value back into your business. With Ad Card, it's entirely different and streamlined. You simply get your clients on Ad Card and make yourself the agency of record, and you'll get the cash back as long as you're managing the ad spend. It's a great way to double your profit without doing any additional work. Check it out at funneldash.com.
So, I mean, you see behind the scenes of what's going super well, but of course, we'd love to see that poor ad segment of, things that just haven't worked very well. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen a wide array of maybe crash and burns, maybe poor launches or something kind of along those lines. But what is your poor ad in this scenario of things that you saw that just did not go well?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to, I think, approach a response on that. Is one, it's like the ad side, which I don't actually do ads myself, but I see them, and then the other one's like a business operations and a growth point of view, which I could probably answer better. But on the ad side, I think that consumers are a lot smarter with what's being presented to them. There's just a proliferation of clickbait. And so going back to humanizing commerce is being real with what your brand stands for. For instance, like this whole conscious capitalism revolution a couple of years ago, there's so many brands that were sort of hanging their hat on, philanthropy. And I think it started kind of after Tom Shoes a bit, and it just proliferated after that. But I think that consumers can see right through that. I think having a mission behind your brand or your company is super important. It's what makes us live. It's what makes life worth living. And I think that's important to just be genuine in that approach. On the operations side or the business side, I think sprawl is there's something to be said about sprawl, whether it's IT sprawl or having too many employees doing too many different things and being very specific in the way that you designing your business or actually putting people in place that can operate systems the way that they were meant to be operated. And I kind of mentioned this before is like making sure you have the right team of people in place. This could be externally as partners or internally. But if you get too much sprawl, then the investments that you're making in your technology suite, your technology stack, go diminished. And I think that's a dangerous place to be because you're driving
Mm.
revenue, but your profitability is going down. And if you can look at it in the same sense as doing both at the same time, driving down COGS and increasing sales at the same time is building efficiencies with the revenue that you're making. I think that's just good business sense.
That makes complete sense there. Man, this is an interesting one today. Hell yeah. So, I mean, with the whole rich ad, poor ad concept, we try and find the crossroads between the marketing and the financial side of things. So, I mean, this very open-ended kind of question here, but what kind of financial tips could you have for, a business that's doing, 10 to shoot 25 million a year or, even more than that to where it's kind of a bit more of a high tech kind of question, I guess you can say, versus the guys who are just doing, less than 10 mil a year.
Yeah, I think that the right investments is where you want to focus. It's tough
Ooh.
to do all things. I mean, as a brand, you're looking at operations and warehousing, fulfillment, B2B partnerships. There's so much there that you're doing, and I think that using some of that profitability to start, little SWAT teams or little pods of people that can look at developing business whether it's like a B2B scenario or if you're looking to get products into retail stores to extend your brand presence. I think those are enormous things to do. And it's all about maximizing each channel, but you got to add channels one at a time. I think in every case, you got to start with one and keep those bricks building. From the financial side, I don't know if I have a good purview on that piece, just because I'm not in like an investor seat. But one of the best things that I think you can do as a business is building out your order management capabilities. As you start to extend products in different channels and leveraging ads in different channels and you're selling everywhere, it becomes hard to manage. And a lot of the stores, especially in the retail side, not necessarily manufacturing as much, they're looking at this whole omni-channel strategies, being ubiquitous, being everywhere all the time. And that can be harsh on operations. It's like, how do you know if you sold something online with a discount or a coupon and they bring it in store that coupon needs to be, reconciled? So there's a lot of inventory reconciliation, leveraging your stores for distribution and fulfillment centers. It's one beauty thing that comes out of leveraging a more enhanced order management platform. And so thinking about, that omni-channel experience is the important piece. I think is when you start to grow, is being able to scale the back end as fast as you can scale the ad side. You can bring in customers very quickly. You can bring in resellers fairly quickly if you have a good brand, a good product. But unless you're able to really, push products out and then reconcile all the inventory and profitability, it's going to be hard to drive growth.
Oh yeah, and I mean, shoot, scaling an omni-channel approach system can be a mess. So I mean, the order management on the back end is going to be the biggest deal because I mean, not only that, but then the tracking can be a mess. So I mean, the amount of variables involved to where it's like you really got to focus on that kind of back end first before even jumping into these new areas, just because it's a new land basically. So I think that's some killer stuff there. Now, when it comes to the partnership side of things, you may have a little bit more insight here, but when's a good time to kind of look into partnerships kind of when scaling, and how important is it to find the right partner? I was literally reading an article on Twitter, I think it was like yesterday, of like, finding a partner is like finding like a partner in life, to where I've seen some nightmares, but I've seen some really good things come out of it. So it's kind of different to see, how people look at how they form partnerships, whether it's, somebody they just met, somebody they've been working with for years. How would you guide somebody on the partnership side of things?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that we all struggle with, finding the right partners that can add the right value. I mean, what is the economic change in that? There's two kinds of partnerships really. There's one that you pay for a certain product or service, and there's another that you're sort of reciprocating some level of value, whether that's a value in bringing an ecosystem or clientele to a particular partner, or if you're paying for services. And I think that creating the right incentives in any sort of contract is really important. If the right incentives and the right will promote the right behaviors, then the outputs are going to be good. And recommendations are always great, but you never know once you're going in. I think setting the right expectations with the partner on what's capable. A lot of companies will try to oversell what they can do, and that comes out like after you purchase. And of course, like we're talking about experiences here, so I think being truthful with what you want to achieve and is seeing if they can help you with just that, those first initiatives. Because once we start talking about partnerships or outsourcing different parts of our companies, you start building the list. What do you want? Well, that list can get quite long, and the priorities aren't centered. Then you're kind of chasing this magic golden carrot or, or whatever, and you can really be distracted in what you want to achieve with that partner. So I think it's better to keep it a bit more concise and realistic. And as those partnerships begin to flourish and you capitalize on those initial initiatives, there's always going to be room and time and funding for adding those things on your wish list.
Man, that was perfect. Well, Travis, man, this has been absolutely epic. So, what's next for you, man? What do you have kind of coming up in the pipeline? How can people get in touch with you? How can we support you? fill us in there.
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to listen to different perspectives. I'd encourage anybody that want to have a conversation around this stuff to reach out on LinkedIn. I love to have conversations and connect with people and like-minded individuals that are pushing the limits of themselves and their companies. And those are what we all remember in life and in business, and whatever situation you're in, is the stories that you can create and the friendships you can build. So, definitely open to conversations.
Heck yeah. And anything you want to kind of shout out you got going over there, or?
Yeah, I mean, everybody that I've come across in my life and in my career within commerce, it's been an amazing journey. I've met some wonderful people, and those people are my friends now. And so, I give a shout out to Yotpo, great partner and great friends over there. Nosto personalization stack that we've been working with for years. Dot Digital Group. Vertex, and there's so many I could list, but those are some core partners that I think have just done wonders in the ecosystem and helping brands and products scale and helping Magento be a better product and do more for its customers. So if I missed you, I'm thinking about you because there's just so many people I couldn't even list. I appreciate that opportunity to give those call outs.
Yeah, no worries, man. Well, Travis, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for jumping on the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. If you're like me and listen to podcasts on the go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and richadpoorad.com/podcast. And if you absolutely love the show, go ahead and leave a review and a comment, share with a friend. If you do, take a copy, screenshot of it, email me, zach@funneldash.com, show me you left a review, and I'll give you a free copy of the Rich Ad Poor Ad book. To learn more about the book, go to richadpoorad.com. To leave a review, go to richadpoorad.com/review. Thanks again.